Today we're in Topeka, Kansas, which is the capital of the state of Kansas. You can see the Capitol building over there behind me, and that's what we're going to explore today. So let's go check it out.
The Kansas State Capitol is also known as the Kansas Statehouse, and outside there are several different sculptures. This is one honoring pioneering women of Kansas. It's been the home of the executive and legislative branches of government for Kansas since 1861. That's when Kansas became state. So when you walk in, there's a map on the floor of Kansas and all the counties. Sedgwick County right there, that's where I live, in Wichita. Kansas became a state in 1861. This is the second building to serve as the capital, and during the territorial period of 1854 to 1861, an earlier Capitol building was begun but not completed in Lecompton, Kansas. And I have already done a video about Lecompton. It's pretty interesting. When you walk in, there's lots of pictures all around the walls of different famous Kansans. And you can see the limestone walls there. And there's just lots of pictures just kind of put all around the first floor of the building. The first floor has most of the historical information. So if you come in and tour, you're going to spend most of your time on the first floor. So construction began in 1866 using native limestone from Geary County, Kansas. And then construction that was on the east wing. On the west wing began in 1879 using limestone from Cottonwood Falls. In 1881, the legislature authorized funds for the construction of a central building to link the two wings. And you see pictures of different phases of construction. The central building construction began in 1886. The building wasn't officially completed till 1903, 37 years after it started. You do have several photos and some information about Native Americans and their history here in Kansas. Down a couple of the hallways are 12 notable events in Kansas history. I thought this was pretty interesting. First one was the first party leaves Missouri headed from Mexico on the Santa Fe Trail in 1821. 1838, the Potawatomi Trail of Death ends in Kansas. In 1854, the Kansas-Nebraska Act signed into law by the president. In 1859, the Santa Fe Railway is chartered by the Kansas legislature. Still a territory in 1859, women's rights included in discussion of the Wyandotte Constitution. That's the early Kansas Constitution. In 1862, the legislature formed the Kansas Agricultural Society. 1867, the first load of cattle shipped via rail in Kansas. Really important part of the Kansas history there with the railroad. 1881, Kansas adopted prohibition as part of the state's constitution. 1925, it talks about the early pioneers of aviation and how Wichita is now called the air capital of the world. In 1935, Black Sunday, which was the Dust Bowl. In 1938, rural electrification in Kansas made its way to those areas. In 1954, the Supreme Court announced this ruling on Brown versus the Board of Education. In this part of the building, it talks about when Kansas was becoming a state and the debate over slavery and how significant Kansas was in that debate. It's interesting because this isn't a separate part of the Capitol. There's people walking through that work here every day. So it was kind of interesting mixing in with all the different people that this is their office area. There were a lot of historic things just down the hallways from where everyone works. And that's the 34-star flag. Kansas was the 34th state, so that's what the flag looked like when Kansas became a state. And they have a lot of old posters of different fairs that happened in Kansas, so pretty cool to see those old advertisements. There's Marysville, Kansas, Bourbon County, that's where Fort Scott is. Talks about different racing trials. And then the Southern Kansas Fair in Wichita. Like I mentioned, the first floor is going to have most of the historical artifacts and photos of things related to kind of the construction of the building and Kansas history. As we start to go up each level, you'll see a few things here and there, like there'll be different murals. There was some sort of a high school gathering here, so I didn't spend too much time on this floor, but this is where people would office, do their daily work. There are a lot of great murals painted by several different artists throughout the lifetime of the Capitol building, from the late 1800s all the way till more modern times. In 2001, the State House began a $120 million modernization project, including restoration of first through fifth floors. By the time the project finished in 2014, delays resulted in a total cost of $332 million. So a little bit over budget.
I think it's because they paint a new one for each governor. So yeah, I think it's just that's how big this will end up being. I think it does.
Up to the next floor, this is the mural for the Brown versus Board of Education that the court ruled on. And this is the area where the Supreme Court used to be. I believe it's across the street now, but now it's being used for, looks like it's kind of a regular meeting today.
And what I might do is actually
Pretty neat to be able to walk in and see where the Senate meets. And just down the hall is their library here for the Capitol. Very impressive area as well. And up on the next floor, this is looking down to the House of Representatives where they meet. Our final part of our tour is going to walk up to the top of the dome. And you have to take a tour guide up to the top of the dome. You can walk around the rest of the building by yourself.
Deck at the top of our dome, excuse me. Yeah, you'll see right below here are 4 allegorical murals, which are some of the oldest here at our Capitol. They're not the original artwork that used to hang up here. The original was by an Italian artist under contract with the Populist Party. 3/4 of an inch thick. And then in the center there is our chandelier. It's not the original. The original was a gas chandelier that was donated as scrap metal for the World War II effort. So until we remodeled in the early 21st century, we did not have a chandelier right there.
You're not able to film while you're going up the steps because it's so narrow and they want you to be focused. It's 296 steps up. We're just getting up to different levels. Now you can see we're above the kind of inner area, and this is the outer area of the dome. I didn't realize that it was two different parts. You can see that's what we're going to go up those stairs, up the spiral. That's why they don't want you filming. But it's 304 feet tall. That's 16 feet higher than the United States Capitol dome. Right there's where the brick ends and copper continues on up in the dome. It's one of the few capitols that continues to offer tours that go all the way to the top of the dome and outside. Great view of Topeka. So let's head back down and you can get a little feel for what it might have been like walking up. Back outside, that's just where we were. And in 1988, they designed this sculpture called Ad Astra. It's a 22-foot bronze sculpture weighing 4,400 pounds. And it depicts a Kansas Native American with a bow and arrow pointed at the North Star. The title Ad Astra is Latin, a shortening of the state motto, which means to the stars through difficulty.
Today we're in Topeka, Kansas, and we're in the capital of Kansas. Duh.